alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Okay, you have no idea on how happy I am sitting with two gentlemen, historicals. One is a professor of law, former Justice Kanyeihaamba, Dr. Kizza Besigye, but most importantly, it's a surprise. And we were in Baganda say ngatukukuta, trying to see how do we smuggle Dr. Besigye into Professor Kanyeihamba's home. In particular, I want to say hello to you people who are watching Alternative Digitalk on our social media page, the Alternative Uganda, and also Digitalk TV. We have, by God's grace, made it, and despite the busy schedule of Dr. Besigye and also the busy schedule of Justice Kanyeihaamba, at least God has enabled us to ensure that these two countrymen, patriots, meet today. It should be a good day. Doctor, say hello to our viewers.
Hello, viewers. My name is Kanyeihamba George, and I am still standing, fighting corruption and abuse of office and torture. And I am so delighted and honored that this younger man, Norman, said he had a surprise for me. I saw to my birthday is not yet, because it is on the 11th. So I was expecting him to bring me something to eat. But he brought me something much more valuable, better. This is not the first time I have met Dr. Kizza Besigye. We've met on many occasions before. But I think, if I remember, this is the second time he has visited my residence. I am very delighted. You are most welcome. My house is honored. Because as I said the other day, before you told me the secret you have, I mentioned his name. I said, as we speak now, there is only one politician standing in Uganda. And I also mentioned to you that was Dr. Kizza Besigye.
We shall reach there. Let him say hello to the viewers.
The others are seated down. I was still introducing myself.
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Sorry to take long. Sorry.
Okay, sir. Kano, say hello to the viewers, and then he should tell us why he says you are still a standing opposition figure.
Yes, a very good day to all of you, wherever you are joining in onto this program. It's a great pleasure to be on the Digitalk program today. And I'm exceedingly delighted that after many years, I am able to be at the home of a most respected patriot, intellectual, and judicial mind, the Honorable Justice George Kanyeihamba. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you for that honor.
Myself, I'm losing words, but nonetheless, how does it feel like, Doctor, meeting this gentleman after a while?
For me, it is a very exciting moment. It is an honor because this man, you see here, has fought for human rights, democracy, and the good governance. He has been in jail many times, and yet he still is standing tall with honesty, and still, even from where he is, he still hopes. And we all wish that he liberates Uganda from the kind of misery that we are facing from the ruling party and its leadership. That's why I am very delighted.
Yeah, well, you see,
Challenge we have here, I have two doctors now. So I want to say doctor, then he's another doctor. Now, okay.
Now, he's a doctor of law, he's a doctor of medicine,
Doctor of
I
law.
am doctor of laws.
Okay, now, Dr. Kano Kizza Besigye, let me be specific.
yes, Professor George here is out person, first of all, intellectually, having, I think, read all the books and got to a stage where they say, no more books ahead.
You that is
But more importantly, in his public life, his adherence and scrupulous adherence to principle, and you know, his virtues, holding firm onto his virtues, which has put him in conflict with powerful people, with those exercising state power. He has served in the government and opposed the same government.
The same way you have.
Yes, and he has been critical of all the governments that we have had, which has led him to live in exile, to suffer all kinds of mistreatment, but has held firm onto what he believes. Personally, I have been a beneficiary of his courage and sense of justice, because when we petitioned the Supreme Court in 2006, he was a member of the panel of judges. He was part of the quorum of judges that had our petition and made a judgment on it. And indeed, anybody who has followed what goes on in those petitions will know the amount of pressure that is imposed on all the judges that sit in those courts. And he has written about it in a book which is
challenging
which he has now given me a copy of, an autographed copy of, challenging presidential elections. And the most important point, I think, apart from the ruling that he arrived at, was that the law relating to challenging presidential elections required the judges to make an inquiry. Yes. That the judges had a proactive role to inquire into the election and make findings,
not a ruling.
their own findings. That it's not the same as in ordinary courts where you listen to the submissions of the plaintiff and the defense, and depending on what they have presented to you, you make a judgment. In the presidential election petitions, the judges are required by the Constitution to inquire. And that's what they have not done in all the petitions that we have had. That's what distinguished Professor George Kanyeihamba from all the judges that have had the opportunity to be members of courts hearing presidential election petitions. And that's why, frankly, after the 2006 presidential election petition, I made a judgment call that if I am a candidate again, I will not present my grievances to any other Supreme Court, because clearly they have abdicated. They had abdicated their responsibility, which Professor George Kanyeihamba held them on.
Still in the same angle, Dr. Kizza Besigye, what does that communicate? Where does that leave Ugandans, especially in regards to their trust under the judiciary?
The point that we have been repeatedly making is that the misfortune our country finds itself in is that that relates to the capture of our state institutions. This has been progressive. There has been a progressive attack and capture of state institutions. All state institutions you'll be remembering when the courts were attacked by the black mambas to stop them making a judgment and get their ruling being respected, that that Mr. Museveni did not like. And so he sent forces into the courts, they attacked courts, they injured people, blood was flowing in the deputy chief justice's
Chambers.
no, that was the deputy chief justice, then was the late Letitia Chikonyogo. And that time she was actually the acting chief justice. And that's why at that time she even led the whole judiciary to lay down their tools in protest. So the courts have been under, the judiciary as an institution, just like all other institutions has been under intense and continuous attack until they were broken. And this, as I have said, has been a progressive kind of process. So that's why in 2001 and in 2006, when we petitioned the court and provided ample evidence, you know, I recall vividly in the 2006 petition, one of the areas we were complaining about was the killing of people at Bulang.
Yeah.
And the dead, you know, dying with my posters on their bodies, and the representative of the Solicitor General then argued that these people who had died, if they had not died, they would have cast 3 votes. And that's
Sounds
surely
funny.
considering the difference.
Those
in
3
the-
votes were irrelevant for
Yes,
them.
and Justice Kanyeihamba asked him straight away, said, if 1,000 birds are perched on a tree and you shoot and kill one,
The rest will fly and run away.
how many remain?
That's the question he asked when he was
Yes,
he was on a panel in Supreme Court.
That's right.
yeah. So you know, at that time in the early days of the NRM regime, which I call a junta, there were people who were still holding farm, and they were being attacked and broken.
Yeah.
But that's why in the earlier petitions, the court would be divided. In fact, would be divided almost
Half.
a half. But subsequently, the last petition, it was 9-0.
Yeah, sure.
So it shows that the takeover, the capture of the
It's fully
judiciary
successful.
has now been
It's
completed.
complete, certainly. I agree with that.
Back to Professor Kanyeihamba.
Yes.
What makes you different from others, and what makes them be different from how you see things? Because literally, in the previous discussions, you had said that you had close to 5 of you also who had agreed that the petition should go on. Later alone, your colleagues let you down, and you quoted one of them saying, "George, I am sorry, I took you to the
To the
we
garden
to the garden
path,
and I left you
and
there."
I left you there. That was my, he was my best man. When
took you to
when I married first, well, I haven't married twice. My wife, whom I love, is still around. We've been married for 58 years.
So your best man took you to the garden and left you there.
Yes, and I also was his best man. We were friends from schools. He had gone to St. Mary's Ushorosa. I had gone to Kigezi High School. I used to visit his home quite regularly. His mother was called Nyamihana, and he was the only boy. So his mother used to say, I have 2 boys, Joseph
You and-
Mlenga and Kanyeihaamba, George. But let's go back.
Yeah. What makes people in
When we
judiciary-
first had the petition, Kizza Besigye versus Museveni and the election, Electoral Commission, we sat together. I want this way to be recorded properly.
Everyone is watching.
Consider our findings. 7 of us, including the Chief Justice, found that the petition was justified and should be allowed. Just Odochi, the first one he asked was everybody, then he came last. He asked Justice Odell, how do you find? He said the petition should be allowed. He next asked the seniors, Sekoko, John Sekoko. Sekoko then allowed the petition.
Those are 2.
He next asked the third one, Karokola,
3.
Alfred Karokola. Karokola said, allow the petition.
3.
He next asked Joseph Mulenga.
Mulenga. 4.
He said, allow. Then he asked me.
5th one.
I said, allow the petition. You see, for me, I don't know what's wrong with this Uganda, but I'll tell you what's wrong with us. So having done that, the government knew they were going to lose to Kizza Besigye. It was clear. Actually, in his submissions, or rather findings, Justice Mulenga said, for me, I wasn't on that petition of 2001 because they only had only 5 of them.
Yeah, which was
And
legal and constitutional.
President Museveni refused
To appoint
yes, because he knew I might be
When were they appointed?
neutral, and he was not sure whether the then independent Judicial Service Commission would announce one which was a cadre. So he refused to appoint. So I am always showing in my findings that the 2001 is illegal.
Yeah,
The judgment there. Because
The
they didn't
quorum
have
was
a quorum. There were only 5.
instead of 7.
Your lawyers were not all that very good. Had I represented you, I would definitely have won that petition.
You were already serving as a justice.
Mainly because also, despite what he's doing now, President Museveni respects my opinion. Not only respects it, but he fears it. Now, having said that, then, and this is what I was told by Justice Karokola and Mulenga. And if he was honest, those who participated in threatening the judges was my cousin, Major General Kahindo Tafili, who was also stolen my money. So they said, we cannot intimidate Kanyeihaamba because his integrity will not allow him. But he may even make it worse and report to the international community that we were trying to influence his findings. That's number one. We cannot talk to Odell or Sekoko because they are previously members of UPC. So they may not agree. Mulenga, we know him. And they used General, who was the Inspector General of Police.
Oh, you mean...
Yes, what is his name?
Kaihura?
Kaihura. Kaihura is his nephew. Rather, he's his maternal uncle. So they approached them. And this I have written in all my books. I am not afraid to say so. So they approached those 3. They said, if Kizza Besigye wins this petition, we shall declare martial law. We shall dismiss all the judges who have been sitting on it, and we shall call a foreign body to come and preside over elections in Uganda because we are incapable of doing it. So both changed. But they changed after the last minute. Kaloko earlier, a week earlier, we discussed the judgment or the findings And the Karuka said, for me, I'm changing my mind. We said, why? He said, can we guarantee that the Museveni will not rig again, even if you have a second
Election.
a second petition,
Election.
a second election. Secondly, can we stop the army taking over in a coup?
That's Karokola.
Because Karokola, because we shall have denied their boss power. So we say those are political matters. We are not concerned. We are only concerned with the law.
Legal, yeah.
We
Legal
interpret
matters.
the law, apply it.
The
What
rest,
happens
no.
afterwards is not our business. So at that time, I respected his view, although I didn't agree with it. Then on the day of giving our findings, which I remember was a Friday, rather a Thursday, Odochi said, I am going to write this judgment that Kizza Besigye has won by 4
To 3.
to 3. Because remember, Karoko
7.
had the raped us. So he said, before we go in court, it's going to be a wrong judgment. Those who want to go to the bathroom, go. So we did. When we came back, Odochi and his arrived. You ask him, interview him. He said, you know,
What did he meet in the bathroom?
he said, this is a very, very important judgment. I would like you to consider your findings, all of you. Just Mulenga said, I also will dismiss. In the day we were giving our ruling, then
Initially, so that's 4 to.
so they
4 to
became
3.
4, we remained 3.
Yeah.
For us, we never changed our mind. So he saw me shocked. He said,
Whatever he met in the bathroom
yes.
must
So he looked at me, he said, George, yes, I took you down the garden path, and I am sorry I have left you there.
Your best man took you to that.
My brother in Kigezi, really. But that's not the only time he did that. Sadly, he's dead, and you shouldn't disable the dead ones, even Karokola. So when we retired, Karokola came here. My daughter can tell you, we gave them food, he came with his daughter. So I said, Alfred, why did you abandon us suddenly? He was not smiling. He looked at me, almost with tears in his eyes. He said, George, knowing where I come from, would I have ruled against Museveni and lived? We never said another word. I couldn't say anything, I was shocked. So that is why the findings were 4
To 3.
Katurebe, Odochi, Karokola, Mulenga, for disallowing the petition, then Kanyeihamba, Sekoko, and Odero ruling to allow me. I have told this story ever since 2006. But the Ugandans don't listen to me. They don't call us what is wrong with our governance. This is my problem. I have given this little book to Honorable Kizza Besigye, doctor, that at least as the only remaining voice in the wilderness of politics in Uganda, he can guide the nation. I wish if I was the Minister of Education, I would publish this for every schoolboy, every teacher to read it. Because it shows you that Uganda will no longer believe in the rule of law. We don't believe in the constitution of Uganda. But let me tell you, when we finish promulgating that constitution, Museveni stood up And they said, this is the best constitution Ugandans have ever made. And I will go in the bush once more if anybody interferes with it. Little you people did you know, he would be the first one to violate it and try to strangle him. Mao, sorry I'm talking very long, but I feel very emotional about this matter. Mao was my friend. I am going to give a video where he's praising me and rubbishing President Museveni. Not only that, but normally you remind me, you wrote something quoting him. He said, Uganda is like a rotting fish. And if the body is right, the head is already rotten.
So is the rest.
Now he has made a deal with the rotten head of fish. But if you see, they sent me a copy on the very day. Somebody kind from State House sent me a copy. I have it here, the agreement. And it says, the agreement doesn't mention that he will become Minister of Justice and the Constitutional Affairs. But it says, Amao agrees to implement and support, all the decisions of the NRM. What is the exchange? The exchanges. And the NRM and the President of Uganda shall support the aspirations.
Mere aspirations.
The Democratic Party.
And the dreams. They don't say the dream, but and the dreams of DP of Katonda. And today some chap giving me that paper really, because I wanted the people to read it. There is a man called
Page,
Charlie Gonza.
page 8.
Page 8. Charlie Gonza. Uganda, we are caught with madness. And even his picture is here. He says, hell, nobody Mao, the genius. How can a genius lose an election? But the more important, the man himself, the picture is here. The picture is here. He says that he has been teaching for a long time as a lecturer at Makerere. Do you know what he's been teaching?
No.
Higher education. And the Uganda read it. So, how can the genius join a party to become
A rotten fish.
a rotten fish in order to be smelling it while he's doing Cheyo, Museveni, and the NRM? Very sad. So, let me tell you, and I hope my friend here, from presidential candidate, will bear with me. I am saying that President Museveni has done enough damage or ruling. He should retire now. Forget about the other things. I am happy that our guest here refused to challenge the next election. Because you see, every petition, Museveni has won. All our findings say what he has done are criminal, unconstitutional, and against the integrity of a leader of his time. But he wins every time. So can't the opposition behave like Kizza Besigye and they say, we better use some other method? I have publicly said I don't want a coup or military fighting. So the only way, which does not, you are entitled to speak about the retirement of our leader. It's not a crime. You are entitled to say, let's talk about his succession. The other day there was what they called the Muhoozi project. Museveni, whatever he does, doesn't believe in it. Because at the moment he's fighting with his son as to what policy they should have
In Ethiopia.
in Ethiopia. Muhoozi, General,
Supports the
is supporting the opposition to overthrow the government of Ethiopia. President Museveni Tibuhaburwa is supporting the government of Ethiopia. So let me tell you something. Muhoozi does not respect his father. And if Museveni said, I support him to rule, then both would be telling lies to Ugandans. When he said, I have a team ready to take over the power in Uganda, he didn't mean it after his father. He meant now. So I will die with my views on these issues. He made us believe, not me, but many Ugandans believe, that Kizza Besigye was dying. That's why, that was a stupid statement for a head of state to make the presidential candidate, even if it was true. But if Kizza Besigye had won that election, he had promised us to do 1 or 2 terms in accordance with the Constitution. He would still be alive, but retired president.
already.
Even the one who succeeded me would have retired.
Absolutely.
Because even if I served 2
terms,
terms
yeah.
from 201,
Yes,
that would have
constitutionally.
ended in 211.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
211.
The one who would
2021
have succeeded
would
would
be
have,
retiring.
would have retired in
Yes,
2021.
now you people who are doing the film, take a picture of us. And of us about to collapse and die.
Justice Kanyeihaamba, I want to go to Dr. Kizza Besigye. What does that mean to you in particular? Because you have gone to court. Okay, at first you held guns in between 80 to 85. You came here thinking everything would be sorted out in one way or the other. Things haven't worked. You have tried ballot papers. Definitely, you have heard from him. On the last hour, when people went to the bathroom, whatever they met there, they changed their minds on return.
Yes.
What should Ugandans do?
Well, we've been very, very clear about the option that remains for Ugandans. First of all, options are given by the situation that you want to address. When we were originally contesting in elections, we still had a slight hope that maybe if Mr. Museveni and those of his mind saw the mood in the country and how it has changed and the desire of the people to have the constitution respected or the change in Uganda effected, that they would, whether reluctantly or not, give way. But it's now absolutely clear that Mr. Museveni is determined to hold on to power until he dies. And when he dies, the reason there is all this hula bara about the Muhoozi project, that then his son, whom now they are grooming as the crown prince, will then take over. And this whole idea, which now they are, I think, more arrogantly talking about the Chwezi
Dynasty.
dynasty, is, which originally many people, quite rightly dismissed as idle talk, is now a clear intention of Mr. Museveni and his family. And so the capture of the country must be ended by people struggling to regain their power and influence in the country. And we have been very, very clear that that cannot happen by using, again, force of arms, because when you use arms, what you get is a change of the armed rulers. The very thing that Mr. Museveni prominently said at the steps of parliament as he swore in 1986, that what is happening here now is not a mere change of the guards.
Fundamental change.
That's the only thing it can be. Because new gunmen, by the time they take power, the civil society would have even been much more weakened than before the war started. And therefore they will have far less capacity to cause the gunmen to account to them. And that's why the struggle at hand is not a change of leaders. It's a change of power from those who have captured it with coercive instruments to the population. And for that change, for that shift to happen, the population must organize itself and assert their will. And that's why we have been all these years saying that it will take 3 steps. First, the conscientization, the awakening of the population to their duty, to know that they will not get out of captivity without being active participants. This whole question of saying, Besigye mutuyambe, some people will do it for us, will not cause the type of change that this country needs. The type of change we need is a participatory one. We will not have messiahs in some individuals. Everybody must play a role. And so the first step is for people to become alive to their responsibility in causing the change. The second is to organize, because victory is for the organized. Agali awamu, egaluma ennyama. Without unity, you cannot have the necessary power and capacity to subdue the gunmen. And this organizational stage is what has been very challenging, because those who want to maintain power do everything in their power to make sure that you are not together. And this is for all people, not just this regime. Any small group that dominates the majority people will want to keep the majority fractured and even conflicting. That's what the British did. They are the ones who introduced the divide and rule approach, even here before anybody knew about the current dictators. So we must ourselves be creative, be awake to this, what the regimes do to divide us, to cause conflicts amongst the people in order to maintain their domination of us. That's why we call for non-partisan organization. This is not a time to organize
individually.
in small parties. We must form a popular front that everybody rallies around, and that we have leadership across the country coordinated. So that if tomorrow we say, this is what we are going to do, everybody can get that message instantly, and we can all do the needful to put an end to this domination. And it's much easier now than it was in the days of the Augustine Camia. People, 70 years ago, 60 years ago, were organizing nationally to stop cooperation with the British colonial government. They did not have telephones. They did not have even vehicles to move around. They did not have, but they were able to do so to a critical stage that the British became aware that they could no longer continue the way they were doing. Today, with just one message on the phone, everybody in the country can get a message. We have all these gadgets like Digitalk, which can disseminate information to the whole country. So it should be much, much easier for us to organize. It's a shame that we are coming to 4 decades and we are not able to organize against the regime of Mr. Museveni. So that is the second stage. The third stage and the last stage is to take the action that ends the domination. And these are the actions that we have very clearly said are non-violent actions, but that are potent enough to stop the regime. We are not pioneers in this. It has been done all over the place. Even just the other week, you saw people in Sri Lanka, take over the government, and they are now busy trying to reorganize the state. Leadership. So this is the way we must go. And this is why, today is a great day to meet Professor Kanyeihamba here, because he has done his duty. Or he has told me he's becoming 83.
Yeah, next week.
Just next week. He has used the 83 years
purposefully
in the positive, active service of this country. As I have said quite often, to his disadvantage, to live outside. Even now, he's living here alone.
My wife is in Europe.
His family is in Europe, where he stayed, where he lived for many years as a result of the disturbance in the country. But he has continued. Even at this stage when he's even weak physically, he has continued to exert himself to make sure that this country, he leaves the country a better place than he found it. And this is what patriotism is about. Not just labeling yourself like Mr. Museveni does, that I am a patriot.
Father of the nation.
A patriot who has been in charge of a country whose citizens are dying of hunger across the country, dying of hunger. When even under British rule, they had ensured food security in Uganda. So I'm extremely, appreciative of George here and how he has used his life in the service of his country. I would implore all Ugandans, young and older, but especially young ones, because it is your future. We are on the way out. It is your future. You must stand up and fight for it so that you can live decent lives where you are in a country with a full range of freedoms, the rule of law, where you have equal opportunities. And this is possible. Just stand up.
Okay, our viewers, we are getting to Justice Kanyeihaamba to give his closing remarks.
To do what?
To give your closing remarks.
Yes.
Because of time, I understand both of you want to participate in other activities. May you please, in a minute or two, give your closing remarks.
Listeners and people who can get messages from others. I think the statement made by Dr. Kizza Besigye is fundamental for the rescue of this country from illegalities, unconstitutional behavior, and the people who don't listen to advice. As I speak now, President Museveni has said in Chitara that he doesn't need advice, that advice irritates him. But he has got hundreds, if not thousands,
Advisors.
including cabinet ministers, because they are supposed to be his advisors, ambassadors. He doesn't allow any of them to give him advice. I wrote in my book, The Defeat of President Museveni, that a leader who no longer tolerates advice forfeited the right to be a leader. And I think the message that has been given by Dr. Kizza Besigye is fundamental to this country. Don't just talk. Some of the opposition leaders talk. Mao has been talking for almost half a century. No change. But he's eventually giving up. He's now...
With that rotten fish.
This man there, Charlie Gonza, I want you to listen to me, and we have a discussion. Charlie Gonza has written today that Mao is a genius. I want you to visit me and prove to me that indeed he's a genius.
Okay.
Geniuses don't lose their campaigns. Geniuses don't become chairmen in other parties.
Okay.
So what I want to say, my writing, and I'll make as many copies as possible. Every Ugandan wants to have a copy. Challenging presidential election. We are challenging Museveni. I have written, and I want everybody to do it. Let us talk about his retirement now. Boniface Byanyima, who at one time looked up to him, is one who told me that I am 2 years older than President Museveni. So he's 80, compared to any other. Kizza Besigye, he's a youngster. And I'm sure many Ugandans would like to stand again as president. The person I voted for last time seemed to be silent. So for me, I would switch my vote to Kizza Besigye.
Okay, that should be the closing remarks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Norman,
Sir, I'm bored.
for persuading him from his busy schedule. And I know it because I write to him every day in newspapers. He has never rested. I sometimes wonder what his successor is doing. But I'm sure he's working good.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, well, I must also thank you for the whole library of books.
Thank you.
All written by...
So I hope you'll have time to read some of them.
Yes.
And it has been a wonderful day, Norman.
Sir.
You have given me a very good Christmas.
But
you have a very good happy birthday, which is next week. I want to end with one thing.
Sure.
When they reported that 100 citizens of ours in Karamoja had died, I want this to be recorded.
Yeah.
I have some little savings, which I got from the university in the UK and others which I have saved here as a pensioner. When I saw those pictures, I cried tears. Then I read in the newspaper that the Prime Minister is gathering money from borders.
To register border.
The licensing. A whole Prime Minister of Uganda is registering border. So I made a challenge. And I'm sure if our visitor here will help us. I offered 15 million shillings of my life savings to go and help the Karamajong. And I said the Prime Minister should come and collect that money from here. Or the Vice President, whom I knew when she was Minister of Education, doing a good job, which I cannot say today. If either he or she comes, I've appealed to people like Kizza Besigye, people who are rich like Sudhir, Meta, the Alam brothers, in casements, to contribute the same or more, so that not a single life in Karamoja dies because of hunger. Let us see whether that challenge will be taken on. I am praying that my visitor today will consider also joining that cause. Thank you very much.
That's a noble cause, of course, but what I'm not sure about is whether the corruption of the people in this government is...
No. You see, there are conditions I haven't given to them. Money like that, when we collect it, we shall somebody with integrity, like Kizza Besigye, to deliver it.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen that are watching and following us on the Alternative Uganda Facebook page, and also the Digitalk TV, and also on our YouTube channel, the Alternative Uganda. We can't thank you enough. It's been a great day that you people, we ambushed you, even when we didn't have it into our normal programming, to have these two patriots. At a personal level and at an organizational level, we can't thank them enough. I can assure you, it's Muganda calls it Chibonomu. Honestly, having these two gentlemen on a set, I'm humbled once again. Bye. See you some other time. Tomorrow, we shall be having our normal programs. God bless all of us and bless Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norman. And may God bless you.
Thank you very much.
You are doing a marvelous work in this country. You are a true patriot.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
You are really,
Well,
we shall never find others.